Line's good.
Never on.
Whoa.
Hard. Hardly.
Come on, Brent. Line's good. Got real close.
The hair high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham. Scott alongside, as always. Hello, Scott.
Good day, Sean.
How's it going?
That's pretty good, I guess.
Good.
You know, keeping busy. You ever have trouble sleeping? And if you do, what do I do to fix it?
I don't know. I tend to be pretty fortunate in that regard. Never really had that much difficulty falling asleep.
Yeah, that is pretty good. I don't know. The last little while, I've just been waking up like every hour, 2 hours at night.
Don't like that.
Yeah. I can only listen to the athletics football podcast so many times, right? Before
Yeah.
I run
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the podcast is too good and you're falling asleep to it and your brain is saying, well, I gotta wake up. I gotta know why Will Levis throwing the out route in the second quarter last week didn't hit the way it should have.
Yeah, exactly.
The things that we need to know.
Okay, I got to think of a boring podcast to listen to then.
There you go. Yeah, that's the key.
I tried not listening to anything going to sleep, and it was weird. I fell asleep eventually, but it was really weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could, but isn't there a noise machine in your room?
Yeah, there's a white noise machine going on, but that's not the kind of noise I'm looking for.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. I guess if you have suggestions to help Scott go to sleep,
yes,
and
please do.
Don't, you know, I'll just cut this off at the start. Say boring shows. Don't suggest ours. Just don't. If you find it boring, that's okay. It doesn't really hurt my feelings that much, but I'm going to get out ahead of that joke.
Yeah, Sean, I also don't listen to your history podcast to fall asleep because I feel like it's kind of weird to listen to my brother while I'm falling asleep.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I don't blame you on that.
So only daytime listening for what's oldest news. Free time.
All right. Thank you. Yes, appreciate it. All right. So this week is one of those weeks where I just turn on the microphones and I don't tell Scott what we're doing. And Scott, we have talked on the show before about scoring games that we feel like the percentages at Curling Canada events are inflated.
Yes.
So I found, now this is old. It might be different now, but I found an old manual or training material that Curling Canada, now this is from 2013, so it's from the Canadian or Curling Association.
CCA,
they used as part of the training for people who keep score or percentages at games. So I thought it would be fun to go through and discuss what the actual process is for scoring games that gives us the percentage, the shooting percentage that we feel is somewhat inflated. And after I read this document, I went and found a game that I had never seen before. In this case, the 2022 Brier semifinal. I was out of the country at the time. I had never seen that game. And I scored it. It was on YouTube on the Curling Canada page. And I went through and I scored it based on what I thought, given the parameters laid out by this document, just to see what would I score it, what did they score it. So I thought it'd be fun to go through what the process is, get your thoughts on how Curling Canada is instructing, or at least was instructing, its statisticians to score the players.
Yeah, that sounds great, Sean. I did volunteer at the 2014 Scotties as an official.
Yeah.
So I did my course in British Columbia, where I lived at the time, and I did on ice the sort of magnet board, and timing, but I never got the chance to do the scorekeeping, and because I knew I wasn't doing scorekeeping, I didn't read that manual. So I'm very excited to go through this and see if it lines up with our perceptions.
Yes. So I will link to this. It's available online through the Curling Canada website. I will link to this down in the show notes. It's a PowerPoint because everything's more exciting in PowerPoint. And you can follow along with us if you would like to, but I will essentially go through every bullet point here on the PowerPoint. So I will link to the PowerPoint down in the show notes if you want to follow along with us. If not, we will go through bullet point by bullet point. So starts out by giving us the objectives. What are the points of the stats? Why do we do this? It says the main points here are to make the game more interesting and fun for fans and players, information for the media, primarily television, though summary reports are emailed to news organizations as well, information for players and coaches. Notes that this is not a coaching tool, but useful information to analyze the opposition and the ice. So this is really being presented, Scott, not so much as something that is to be taken as gospel, but really something that is almost kind of for fun, just to like a talking point almost.
Yeah, it's sort of a shorthand way of describing how the players played.
Yes. All right. So next are the principles that are used in the statistics. First, they are to be straightforward. It's easy to learn. That I think is pretty straightforward. The idea is you shoot a bunch of shots. Here's the percentage that you make. Right? That's essentially what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Second point. This is where I think we get into inflation of scores. Give the benefit of doubt to the curler. What do you think of that, Scott?
I mean, yeah, it's probably better for, the TV for players to not shoot 25%, 30%. Better for them to be in the 80s and 70s and stuff. So yeah, when in doubt, give the benefit of doubt.
And that is the instruction. But sometimes it is silly to be watching a game and like, oh man, he just can't buy one today. Yeah, he's really struggling out there, shooting 87%. You're like, wait,
yeah,
what?
Yeah.
The stat folks are instructed here to give the benefit of the doubt, but the shot is to be evaluated according to the shot called. So a bad call in the perception of the individual doing the statistics, or an impossible shot, improper broom placement does not factor into the evaluation of the shot. So if what is called is not made, that is how you're supposed to evaluate it. It's not, if they call it for the stone to come to the tee line, shoot back up to the 12 foot and then shoot back to the back 8 foot. That's the call, and you have to judge them based on that.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. And broom placement, when you're up there doing the stats, you don't necessarily know.
No, and if somebody hits the broom but misses the shot because the broom wasn't in the right place, tough. Yeah. That's kind of on the team, right?
Yeah. And another thing I think is important to note that the individuals doing the stats don't have access to the television audio if it's a television game. So if the shot is this, like they're going based on where the broom is tapped, essentially. Yeah. They can't really go based on the sounds that are being made, like the talking, the sounds, the talking, the sounds out of their mouths. They can't really go based on that. So they have to go based on sort of where the broom is being tapped. Additionally, and we'll get into this in a minute, if something picks, like real picks, you can tell, but like the elite level picks, where you're not always sure if it's an actual pick or not. Those can be, they don't have access to the players talking about it. Same with the broom. If the skip says, hey, the broom was in the wrong spot, you threw it well, the individual doing the stats might not hear that.
Yeah. And it doesn't really matter. It's the outcome of the shot.
Yeah.
Rather than the intent. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So now, Scott, here is the scoring system that is used here in 2013. You are to record the turn, type of shot, and the score. We won't get into the type of shot and the turn. That's for other stats. We're talking purely about shooting percentage here. But if you remember a few months ago over the summer, I did the little quiz with you about most out turns and in turns and hits
Right.
and all that, right? So these people who are doing the stats are not only looking at makes and trying to come up with the point system for a make versus miss, but they also have to record these things of turn type of shot and then the score. So it's a lot that they have to keep track of, especially in a scenario where you might think open ends are a little easier. I think they're a little easier on the score side of it, but to get all these other things, because you got to put it into the system and there's a precise way to do it. So it can be a little busy because you also got to be seeing what the calls are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you keep your head on the action, your eyes on the action.
Yes. So there are 0 points for a complete miss and 4 points for a fully made shot. And we have a definition of that coming up in a few slides. And this point I thought was quite interesting, Scott. No bonus points.
No bonus points, even if it's Jennifer Jones in off to win the Scotties.
Yeah.
It's just 4 points.
Yeah. No bonus points for amazing shots, for winning shots. No, if it's fully made, it's 4 on 4.
Yeah, is what it is.
All right. Now, then there's some stuff about the takeout codes and what it is. We won't get into that because we're not talking about that, but there are different codes that they have to put into the system. And then, Scott, slide number 8. Scoring is easy.
Scoring is easy.
That's what the bullet says. Scoring is easy. So you get 0 points for a bad shot. And that is defined as did not improve the situation. You get 1 point for a shot that improved the situation slightly. You get 2 points for a mediocre shot, which is defined as a shot that improved the situation, but not the desired result. You get a 3 for almost the desired result, but not quite. And then you get a 4 for a good shot, what one would normally expect. So making the shot 4 on 4. Now, what's interesting about this to me is these definitions, and there seems to be some significant space for interpretation here. But Scott, what do you think of these definitions for the allocation of points?
I feel like there's no, like, so if you are trying to play a run back, for instance, and you make the peel,
yeah,
that can be like a 2, right? You know, it improved the situation because you peeled the front,
yeah,
but it wasn't what you were trying to do.
Sure.
And I think of it, that kind of thing, as a miss.
Okay.
You know, in certain situations, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of leeway here, you know, and basically that anything that slightly improves the situation gets a point at least. But there's nothing that says, like, if it's significantly de-improves, what?
Yeah,
it's the opposite of improves, makes it worse.
Yeah.
There's no like negative points for that. So that's just a 0.
Yeah. But what strikes me is that there can be a really fine line between, say, 0 and 3, in that, say you're throwing a draw, right? It's, say, the team without the hammer, it's their last rock. It's been an open end, but the team with the hammer just rolled out. So you have a center guard, nothing else in play. If you come deep in that scenario, you could make the argument that you did not improve the situation, or any kind of situation where you're throwing a draw and it comes deep. You can make the case that you have not improved your situation by coming behind the tee line on a draw, but yet you could be 1.5 feet deeper than what you called. So you're there, a 3 that almost the desired result, but not quite. But at the same time, you could have also not improved your situation. So there's where the vagary is of, if you, as you say, make your situation worse or do not improve your situation because the margin is so slim, how do you actually try to assess that? Because that's not really going to be a 2 either for improved situation, but not the desired result.
Yeah, no, there's definitely situations. I guess if you think of it as what we've talked about before, which is you weren't shot and now you're shot, you slightly improved your situation. But if you're shot behind the tee line and leaving room for somebody to freeze on you, then it's not really that great.
Right. Or a scenario that, I've seen at the rec level, you have a shot stone that's behind a guard, but it's behind the pin, and it's the team without hammer. And then on their last one, they go to throw another one and try to freeze on it. And it's deep and it kind of bumps to the side. And now instead of having a 1 stone backing, you basically created a pocket for them.
Right. Yeah.
But you only missed by 2 feet.
Yeah. So maybe that's a 3 then.
Yeah. So but again, the benefit of the doubt is to go to the curler. So I would think that people are giving the 3s on a lot of shots that the players would come down and say, no good. Ooh, sorry.
Yeah, but
not good.
But it's also good that they don't have the audio, because no matter what, a lot of the times the players are like, all right, good shot.
Yeah.
Good. Even when it's not good.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go through just a couple scenarios here that I think are regular cases and just what you would give, Scott. So let's say a double takeout that is hit too thin. So the 1 rock goes out of play, the shooter goes out of play, the second rock has been untouched. What would you give that based on this scoring system?
Sorry, say again.
So double takeout.
Yeah.
A traditional double takeout, a half rock double.
Yeah.
That's hit too thin. So the first stone that you're making contact with, that you're trying to make contact, is removed from play. Yeah. But your shooter goes, in that case, underneath the second rock that you're trying to eliminate, not moving it at all, and your shooter is now out of play. What would you give that?
So it would be either a 1 or a 2, probably depending on the position in the end, right? Maybe if it's earlier in the end, you'd give it a 2, where it improved the situation, but it wasn't what the desired result was. But maybe, if it's the last rock, it would be a 0 or a 1. Where it improves it because you could still. If
it was going to be a steal of 2,
yeah.
Is that mediocre? Tricky. Could that not be mediocre?
Well, it has to have improved the situation, and if you're giving up steal, then you've definitely not improved the situation.
Well, if it was going to be a steal of 2, and now it's a steal of 1,
touche,
right? This is what I mean. These definitions are pretty vague. The other one is first rock of the end. Center guard is called, over curls by 2 rocks. So it's 2 rocks off the center line.
For me, that's a 3.
Okay. Yeah, I think I agree with that. That's a 3. A come around to the top 4 foot behind a center guard that is half open.
That's a 3 or 4.
Okay. A takeout where you are asked to roll to the center line, but instead roll to the outside.
2.
Okay.
I'm starting to see how these inflated scores happen.
Yeah. And then a run back that it doesn't make contact with the shot, the stone in the house, but turns into a peel.
Yeah, I think it depends, right? Like if it's the skips rocks or Vice's last rocks, then it's going to be a lower score than if it's your seconds first or your second rock. So in the earlier case, a 3, later in the end, a 1 or a 2.
Okay. All right. So those are the ways you are to score. And again, the first bullet on the page, Scott, scoring is easy.
It's easy.
All right. Now it goes through some of the more unusual situations. Throw-throughs are not counted. They are 0 on 0. So they don't count as really even a shot. So you'll notice sometimes if you look at the box score of games, if there's a throw through in the 10th end, or the lead might have 19 shots that they have played where everybody else in the team has played 20 shots. So it doesn't count as a shot at all. So those are 0-on-0. If a rock is removed from play for any reason, it's a 0 and a 0-on-4. So if the rock is burned, a hogline violation or a time violation, the rarely seen time violation, will get you a 0-on-4. So if you happen to be on a team and you have a bet with one of your teammates on shooting percentage for the game and you feel like they're beating you, just burn their rocks when you're sweeping and you'll be all right. You'll get that. Then rock which picks is scored on result achieved. So this notes that not all picks are misses, and not all picks that are said to be picks are actually picks, is an addition that we should note here. But if a rock picks, that is not to be taken into account. It is really just where does the rock end up? I think that's a fair rule. Maybe some of the players don't, but again, given how often they say that there's a pick.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can throw it heavy and then it picks and it slows it down and you're like, ooh, really glad that picked. Some people might even, put their broom in front of the rock to hope for that kind of thing, but I'm not saying who. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, that's definitely what they were talking about. The next slide is be consistent. Consistency, Scott. It's consistency, Brian. Whether scoring tough or easy. So if you're a tough scorer or an easy scorer, it's kind of like grading papers for those of you out there who have ever had the opportunity to do that. All players deserve equal treatment. I think that's a very good thing to point out. Like, don't be harder on, say, when Nunavut is playing Team Canada, don't be harder on Team Canada because you expect more from them, right? Everyone is on the same ice, playing the same game. So be equal. And then there's a couple, give benefit of doubt to the player. I will note that's the second time that they have said that in this training manual, that they're really hammering home that you're to give the benefit of doubt to the player. Nothing is gained by being tough.
Nope, that's true.
Other than honesty and potentially integrity and an accurate reflection of what happens on the ice. Otherwise, nothing is gained.
Yeah, I mean, nobody analyzes these stats, right?
I don't know. We're doing an episode.
I know.
2 guys in 2024. They didn't think of that when they put this together. Well, and then the final bullet point on this page is these are curling's elite. Their stats should be good. So this is where we get the missed 4 shots in a row. 73%.
Yeah. I get it.
Do you? I don't. I think, okay. The players are very, very good. Like, there's no question about that. That at a Brier, Scotty's, Worlds, these players are great. Like, undeniably great. By saying that their stats should be good, what my fear is that when they do play great and like really like lights out games, that those are minimized or don't stand out as being as great as they are because so many people are shooting high percentages, that the earned 98% game doesn't mean as much when you can miss 5 shots and pull an 83.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but like there's always going to be an upper limit, right? So,
right.
It's like in school grading, like it's not like 50% is the median score, right? Like the median is supposed to be a C, whatever that is. I don't. When I was a kid, it used to be like 70 something, but yeah. So who knows, right? Like who knows what, like why score it out of 100 if everybody's going to be grouped at the top? Probably because the people that are scoring less than 100 are the ones that are not being scored.
Yeah, there you go. But because it's a percentage, it makes it like, I just think it's obvious when the numbers are when they're giving too much of this benefit of the doubt. And so you can look at somebody over the course of the week at an event, and we do this sometimes where they're talking about, okay, they shot 85 and 72 and then 86 and then 90. But if you watch all those games, the ones at the higher end, sometimes you can see a significant difference in the 85 and the 86% game. That one was much, much better. And that's sort of my fears with this, the inflation of the percentages, or my perception that the percentages are inflated. The truly great games don't get the appreciation that they deserve.
I mean, I guess so. They always call attention to the hundreds, when they happen. They don't happen that often, but even like high 80s, 90s is pretty incredible. The sort of what we see for cumulative event totals for the skips is between 80 and 85% usually. Sometimes the great ones are up near 90 for a full event. Pretty rare, but it does happen. And the leads are like all around 90 to 80, which makes sense intuitively because their shots in theory are easier. So I think if you just sort of, instead of thinking of it really as something out of 100,
right,
think of it as like the bottom is really 50. Like if you're 50%, that's basically like zero.
Right. Yes,
I just think recalibrate your scale rather than have an issue with the scoring.
All right. So in addition, so now the next slide talks about left-handers. This is just what you put in, that left-handers are going to have opposite rotation for their in and out turn respectively. And then just notes that if there is a player hitting out a turn, all rocks are credited to the player who throws them, indicate if there is something happened where they're throwing out a turn. You do have to watch the skip for the called shot. Notes that not all skips indicate the call particularly clearly. So score generously on a no call or a missed call. So if you don't know what happens, 4-on-4, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do, right? You're going to say he didn't execute what
I don't know was supposed to happen.
Even though I didn't know?
Yeah. Then next up, in the tips section, watch for optional shots. So award full points for any properly executed option, tick guard or get rock in the house. So this is one where they say, all right, we're going to try to hit this thing, but if you peel the guard, that's fine. So that should be a 4-on-4 according to this.
Yeah.
Again, even though it's a miss.
Yeah, but it's one of those, either one is
right
what we're calling.
All right. Then the advice is to not agonize for a long time over any given shot. Your first thought is likely the best. And of course, you have to see what the call for the next shot is. Some other tips here. Ice conditions affect strategy and scoring. So on swingy ice, guards must be tighter and are more difficult to position. On straight ice, hits are simpler and draws around guards more difficult. Where ice conditions have made a shot easier or harder, one should raise or lower scoring standards. That I like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense.
Then adjust points for realistic results. Adjust points for difficult shots like a pick style takeout where staying is not realistic. Award 4 points. Well, yeah, a pick you're not supposed to. So that's a make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, hit and rolls. So note that if the roll is optional, award full points for a nose hit. And the perfect hit and roll is a hard shot. Use the hit and roll code sparingly. If a roll is indicated, but you are sure the skip would be happy with a nose hit, then don't use hit and roll.
Okay.
Then it gets
I
in. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think that's fine. Like most of the time, you'd prefer to roll, but you don't need to. And it's the rare case where like, yes, we absolutely need to roll behind this guard to give ourselves a chance to steal or score two. And in that case, yeah, you could use the B code for hit and roll. But yeah, I agree with this.
Then it just gets into front stone versus a guard. Those are slightly different in the definition. That's just a code thing.
Mhm.
Notes that the game score or situation can affect the score for a shot. So on a skip slash rock draw, which is not shot but cuts the opponent down, that can be given a 2 or a 3. But in the last end where the shot is needed to win or tie, it's either a 0 or a 4. Similarly, if a skip is drawing for an extra point, needs to be full forefoot, the score is either going to be 0 or 4.
Yeah, that makes sense. Either you made it or you didn't.
Yeah. Then another tip is to practice as a group and compare your results to improve consistency. Score some local Super League games or other competitions.
Yeah, I think that's a good tip.
So those are the instructions. The rest of the PowerPoint is about the technical side of how to put things into the system. But those are the general principles for scoring a curling game here in Canada. Scott, anything stand out to you from going through that?
I think the thing you pointed out, right, the be generous is noted there a few times. Generally, these are the best players in the country. And so they should have higher scores than you would expect of the average curler on your rec league, right?
Sure.
So in that sense, I think it makes it tracks to be more generous in your scoring.
Fair enough. So I took these principles, Scott, and I scored a game.
Okay.
So I scored as I said, the 2022 Brier semifinal. It was a game that I had not seen before. I knew that Brad Gushue won the game because he won the event. So
yes.
I knew that, but I didn't know what the score was. I didn't know anything about the game because I had not seen it before. So this is, of course, the 3-person Gushue team. Mark Nichols was out with COVID, and this is Pat Jansen playing third with Brendan Botcher back before this major changes in lineups with this new cycle. So I went through. The game took 8 ends to play, and I went through and scored it. So naturally, given the lineup, Jeff Walker and Brett Gallant threw more rocks than everyone else. So they threw 24 shots in 8 ends. Gushue, Karrick Martin, Brad Thiessen, Pat Jansen, and Brendan Botcher all threw 16 shots. So in my scoring of the game, Jeff, and now I should note, I really gave the benefit of the doubt to the leads where you didn't see what the shots were. So I really did try to give the benefit of the doubt there. So the leads, you can probably take or leave a little bit. There's a little more grain of salt on those scores of mine. So for Jeff Walker, I scored him at 82%. Brett Gallant at 92%. And Brad Gushue at 95%.
Okay.
For Team Botcher, I had Karrick Martin at 89%. Brad Thiessen at 75%. Pat Jansen at 66%, and Brendan Botcher at 64%.
Okay.
Now, I went to the statistics and saw what the difference was. So, as I said, I had Jeff Walker at 82%. The official score had him at 94%. That, okay, fine. Like, I didn't see the shots. I was guessing in a couple cases. So that, fair enough. I had Brett Gallant at 92%. They had him at 96%.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little more benefit of the doubt there. Gushue, this is the only one I think that I had higher. I had him at 95%. They had him at 94%.
It could be a rounding error,
It could be, yes. Like one extra point. I might have given him, like 1 or 2 extra points along the way. But I had him at from the fifth end on, I had them at all 4-on-4s.
Yeah. Well, they did pretty much dominate the back half of that game.
Over on the other side, Carrick Martin, as I said, I'm at 89%. On the ice, they had him at 88%.
There you go.
This is where it gets a little funkier. Brad Thiessen, they have him at 86%. I had him at 75%. He did not play particularly well. And I think one of the things is that on those run backs that don't make contact, I think they were giving him more points than I was.
Yeah,
I think that's the difference.
That probably tracks, right? That's an easy place where you could see that difference coming in and have it be such a big difference because he did throw a lot of those.
Yeah. Pat Jansen, I had him at 66%. They had him at 73%. And now this could be one where I might have been slightly affected by the broadcast because pretty much every time Pat Jansen threw the rock and it came to rest, Rush just went, man, he can't buy one today. So maybe that affected me. I don't know, but
it's probably good then, right? That the statisticians don't listen to the commentators.
Right. But that was one. So in one of these cases, and I know it says that if there's a hit and roll called and they stick it or knows that it's fine, like full points are awarded. There was one of those where I thought like, now the hit, they're not okay with the hit and stick like that. I have to dock points in that. There was another one early in the game where it was a hit and stick and he rolled out for that.
Okay.
So I gave that a 1-on-4.
Because that's not what they wanted.
I mean,
was
it
it a
improved the
devastating
situation
rollout?
slightly. Well, Gushu was able to come around to center guard.
Okay.
So yeah. So I think that's probably where the discrepancy was there. And then Botcher, they had him at 69%. I had him down at 64%.
Okay. Not too different, but
no, but over the course of say a week, these extra percentages, when you look at the average shooting percentage, it's really going to add up over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I will say that when I score things I'm part of a group, we have to score applications for things. Traditionally, I am one of the lower scorers of these, right? So I will admit that I am tougher on scoring things than perhaps others are. The benefit of the doubt, really hard for me to give the benefit of the doubt in some of these cases, but I don't know, Scott. I don't know if it actually matters to the overall enjoyment of the sport, but I do think that in this environment where, and Matt Brower wrote about the curlers and the players want to be taken seriously, that, okay, fine. Then maybe we don't give you the benefit of the doubt all the time on these shots, right? Like if we want to, if the move for the sport is into that lane, then let's kind of maybe change the assessment and the way we look at these percentages to, in my estimation, perhaps get a more accurate view of how the players are throwing.
Yeah. Do you know, Sean, when the all-star teams at these events started going strictly by shooting percentage?
I do not.
I don't either. I just thought of that now. So maybe I'll look it up. But if we're into the point where we're giving these kind of awards, if there's any financial bonuses tied to your shooting percentage, I don't think there are, to be honest right now. And if no sport is like baseball that has the statistical background going back like 150 years, but maybe even more than that, man, we're getting old. But yeah, like if you want people to be able to look back at these kind of events 30, 40, 50 years from now and really understand how a team played based only on their numbers, it's going to be tough to do. Yeah. So in that sense, I get it. If, as outlined in the PowerPoint presentation, the intent is for fun to help people get an idea of how teams are playing, then I don't really see a problem.
Well, there you have it, folks. The spreadsheet does say you can go score your local Super League games. If you don't have a local Super League, you could, I don't know, go score the Learn to Curl League and see what happens there. You actually, if you're going to be super generous, say 100%, everybody, come on back. It's a way to retain people. You're a 100% player.
Maybe we should record our game, Sean, and we'll score it after the fact.
Score it. Yeah, we should. Maybe we should try that, or get somebody in to score us.
Yeah.
So, see what the results might be on that one. But there you have it, everybody. A foray into how games are scored. Now that we have this, we can sort of look through the course of the season and get a sense of how games are being scored. Again, doesn't matter. Who knows? But it was fun to talk about for 40 minutes or so. And with that, it's going to be it for us this week. So thanks so much for listening, everybody. If you have not yet, please do subscribe wherever you get your shows. Like, rate, comment, all that good stuff. Helps other people find us, keeps us growing. Head on over to GameOfStonesPod.com. Links to past episodes and to the merch. We are on the socials at Game of Stones Pod, except for Facebook, where it's Game of Stones Podcast. And as I say, I will link down in the show notes to this spreadsheet. But if there's anything else you want to point our attention to in terms of scoring or anything else, you can find us Game of Stones Podcast at gmail.com. Scott, you mentioned baseball. We are recording this during Game 5 of the World Series. As we record this, the Yankees are in control of that game. So that's not something that we're big fans of here.
No, I was having so much fun having the Yankees really eat it for those first 3 games. But, maybe this will give an exciting Friday, Saturday for us to be watching baseball because, it's coming to an end and we won't have that many more opportunities until those, bright spring training games of early March, late February.
Yep. The first broadcast, honestly, though, it's like 3 months away. It's not that long of an off season anymore. It's really,
I know, but like you said this, Sean, and in 2020 when the season didn't start, it was quite jarring. Yeah, because for you and me, this is like the baseball season is kind of the rhythm of the summer.
Yep.
And my mother-in-law once said to me, like, why do you get so sad when it's over? And I'm like, because I watch these guys every day.
Yeah.
For 6 months.
Yep.
And it's just like a part of your day. You follow it, even if you don't watch every game, you're following it and making, tracking the progress of the players and the teams, and
look at the box score and see what's going on. It's a sport too. One of the things that I think is great about it is you can never really get too high or too low because
there's always tomorrow
until the end of September. There's playing again tomorrow. So it's a great sport in that regard. And game 1 was pretty good of this series. Game 2 was okay as well. So game 3 was kind of out front run, and then last night kind of got out of control in game 4. So we'll see what happens the rest of the series. But I would also note that don't play in November baseball.
Yeah, well, and as we speak, Aaron Judge just took his eye off a fly ball and had it go right past him. So.
Okay, great, dynamite. So we'll see what happens. So hopefully, if you're watching, if you're rooting for whoever, I hope for you that your team wins.
I hope the Yankees lose, Sean. Forget that.
Okay, all right. Well, there you have it, everybody. Enjoy the baseball. Enjoy the curling. We got some big events coming up soon. The Pan Continental is going on out in Alberta. We haven't talked about that. We'll talk about that next week once all the results are in. But until we do that, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.